Sandwich by Ken Nesbitt. Nobody touched my tarantula sandwich. This sandwich is only for me. And please stay away from my cockroach souffle like Cobra and Rat fricassee. Don't take a drink of my spider blood cider or nibble my lizards on rye. And wait, no. Don't make a meal of my barbecued eel or my rattlesnake jellyfish pie. Please keep your mitts off my octopus pudding. Don't dine on my porcupine dip. Don't take a chew of my centipede stew or a sip of my scorpion whip. Oh yes, if I had a Snickers or Hershey's or Reese's, I promise I'd offer to switch. There's no good eating for kids trick or treating outside of the home of the witch. Thank you!
Awesome, friend.
Is it okay? You can hear it? Hello. I'm going to read my essay. My poem is "Was the Night Before Christmas," written by Clement Clark Moore on December 23rd, 1823. I chose this poem because it is long, hard, and a challenge, but I like it. I also thought it'd be nice to tell to my grandparents this Christmas. This poem talks about a man who saw Santa Claus. Clement Clark Moore uses elements of poetry like rhyme and meter to express the theme of Santa coming to children of a town. This story is about a man who woke up and looked out the window, fast like a flash, and he knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. So the man went to the chimney to find a poor man with a long beard, white as snow. When he laughed, his belly looked like a bowl full of jelly. Last of all, Santa left on his sleigh and said, "Merry Christmas to all, and all a good night." Do you know what an AABB pattern is? Well, look no harder. I will tell you what it is. First, let's look at a couplet or two lines that rhyme at the end. The poem says, "When all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse." Did you hear the pattern AA, mouse and house rhyme? Now let's do AABB rhyme. Let's look at another rhyme. And I and my cat had just another brain for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Did you see the pattern? The whole poem is written in an AABB rhyme or couplets, but it also has meter. Meter means a pattern of stressed and unstressed syllables. It means the beat or the pattern that you hear. You can hear it in this poem. For example, now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen. All in all, the reason I like "Was the Night Before Christmas" or "A Visit from St. Nicholas" as it was first titled, it's because it is funny, hard, and very cheerful, but the hard part is easy. Was the Night Before Christmas, written by Clement Clark Moore. Was the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hope that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled, all snug in their bed, while visions of sugar plums danced in their head. And Mama in her kerchief, and I and my cat had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast, on the new fallen snow, gave luster to midday of objects low. Then, when one to my wondering eye should appear, but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be Saint Nick. More rapid than eagles, their coursers they came and shouted them and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Now dash away, dash away, dash away all.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Hi, babe. Good job.
Is Mackenzie on and would she like to go?
Yeah.
Okay, Kens, go ahead. I'm going to turn so that the kids can see you.
Okay.
There's everybody. Wave hi to Mackenzie.
My poem is called Talking, written by Judith Verst in the year 1981. I chose this poem because I saw it and I read it and it sounded like me. This poem talks about a girl who loves talking and she gets in trouble. This poem uses elements of poetry like rhymes, rhythms to express a theme that sometimes you need to take time out of talking too much, because sometimes people get tired of someone talking too much. This poem mostly talks about how you can get in trouble when you talk a lot, and you might get disciplined by your parents when you do something they don't like. This poem is a lesson to help people learn what they do and what not to do. For example, you shouldn't talk too much so it doesn't upset people. This poem relates to me because I like to talk about things that I love and like. This is a lyrical poem because it doesn't tell a story, but it teaches a lesson about life. This poem uses elements of poetry like repetition and rhyming couplets to create a rhythm and meter that is a fun way to say and hear. For example, on line 9 and 10, Judith Verst writes, 12 sets I saw in Williamsburg. The definition of an erg is an example of rhythm and rhyme. This means that there is a beat you can hear and the words end with the same sound. She doesn't use rhyme in the last 4 lines, but she uses really short lines. Fairy rides, the Redskins, poems, and talking. Verst does this at the end because the speaker wants to get all the talking done that she can before the end of the poem. In conclusion, the poem Talking by Judith Verst teaches an important lesson about being good. You can get good things in a fun way that does not sound too harsh. I understand this lesson well, and I really enjoyed learning the poem. Okay. Talking by Judith Verst. They tell me that I talk too much. I'm trying not to talk too much. But oh, it's hard to take time out when there's so much to talk about. How long it took to pull my tooth, how hard it is to tell the truth, why steel is not as nice as trees, why Brian has such scabby knees. 12 sites I saw in Williamsburg, the definition of an erg, why roller skates aren't my style, 6 reasons goldfish never smile, how come I'd rather freeze than roast, and 10 things that I love the most. The mustache on my father's face, fires in the fireplace, any book by Judy Blume, never cleaning up my room, every single Valentine sent to me by Chris Mine, drummers in a marching band, fairy rides, the Redskins, poems, and talking.
Good job.
Well done, Mackenzie. Well done. Good work.
Thank you.
Okay. Oops. Okay, we'll turn back around and face the mic. And next on our list is Lexi Quartet.
Love That Boy by Mr. Walter Dean Myers. Written in the year of 2004. I chose it because I like the poet who wrote it. He writes really good poems. This poem talks a lot about his son and his family. It uses elements of poetry like repetition, metaphor, rhyming, and similes. This poem expresses a theme that parents should love their children. The poem I am reciting is really about a guy who loves his son and how his family loves his son too, and how the boy is similar to his family. This is a lyrical poem. It tells about a guy who loves his son and is calling to him, "Hey there, son." He is comparing his son to his grandpa and his uncle. He is saying his mama liked to hold him, like to feed him cherry pie, but I'll get him by and by. He means the mama can have the son now because the son is too young right now. The dad will get him when he is older. The poem ends with the dad saying that his son has long roads to walk down before the setting sun. This means the dad is saying his son has a long life ahead of him, and his father expects him to be a good man before he dies or grows up. This poem uses many literary devices and poetic elements to express the theme and main idea. For example, in line 7, the poet writes, "I love that boy like a rabbit loves to run." This is a simile. This means he loves his son so much he compares him to a happy rabbit that loves to run. Another example of a theme idea is in line 17. The poet writes, "She can have him now. I'll get him by and by." This helps the reader know that he loves his son so much he lets him stay with his mom because he knows he will get him when he is older. In conclusion, this poem is a lyrical poem, but about how to be a loving parent. I really enjoyed memorizing this poem because it reminds me of my life now and how much my family loves me. Love That Boy by Mr. Walter Dean Myers. I love that boy, like a rabbit loves to run. I said I love that boy, like a rabbit loves to run. Love to call him in the morning, love to call him, "Hey there, son." He walked like his grandpa and grins like his Uncle Ben. I said he walked like his grandpa and grins like his Uncle Ben. Grins when he's happy. When he's sad, he grins again. His mama liked to hold him, liked to feed him cherry pie. I said his mama liked to hold him, liked to feed him that cherry pie. She can have him now. I'll get him by and by. He got long roads to walk down before the setting sun. I said he got long roads to walk down before the setting sun. He'll be a long stride walker and a good man before he dies. Jackie, you ready?
Hi, my name is Jackie, and I will be reading my essay. My poem is "Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening," written by Robert Frost in 1923. I chose this poem because It has a rhyme pattern that makes a beat to my feet. This poem talks about a man who is in the woods, and it uses elements of poetry like rhyme and meter. It has an A, B, B, C, B, C, C, D, C rhyme pattern. In every stanza, there are 4 lines, and each line has a beat like da, di, da, 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 da. You hear that when I recite any line, like whose woods these are, I think I know, and his house is in the village, though. When you hear a beat in a poem, it is called meter. Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost expresses the theme that you should enjoy nature. For example, in line 13, Robert Frost said, "The woods are lovely, dark and deep." This shows that nature can be beautiful. Another example of the speaker in the poem enjoying nature is in line 4 when Robert Frost writes, "To watch the woods fill up with snow." You feel like the speaker just wanting to stop and enjoy the lovely snowy evening. The poet writes, "And miles to go before I sleep 2 times." This poetic element is called repetition. This helps the reader by understanding that the man has to go, but the woods are lovely to him. In conclusion, Robert Frost really helps us learn to appreciate nature, even if we have a busy life with miles to go. He really helps you want to stop and enjoy the snowy evening in the woods. Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though he will not see me stopping here to watch the woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sound the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I've promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep.
Is Devin on? Would he like to join via Zoom? No, haven't seen him. Okay. All right. So the next one up is Declan Clevin.
My poem is A Charge of Life Babe, written by Alfred Lord Tennyson in 1853 to 1855. I chose this poem because it sounded exciting. This is a narrative poem. This poem talks about 600 soldiers going onto a battlefield, and their captain never warned them that they would all die. This poem expresses a universal idea that bravery is important, and that everyone should have it, even when you know that you might not make it. It has a dark and scary and intense mood. This poem uses many literary devices and poetic elements to express the theme of bravery is important as the main idea. For example, in the line, the poet writes, "In the valley of death rode the 600." It talks about how the soldiers go on to a battle, or go and do what they need to do, even if it means they can die. Another example of a poetic element is in the line, "In the jaws of death, in the mouth of hell." This helps the reader understand that the soldiers are brave to go on to or into a place like hell. This is comparing the battlefield to hell and the jaws of death. This is a metaphor and an idiom. If you are in the jaws of death, it means that you are in a very dangerous or life-threatening situation. In conclusion, this poem is a life lesson that everyone should be brave and courageous. I also think that this will be a good poem to recite to you. I want you to know that the theme of this poem is to be brave. Charging Light Brigade by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Half a league, half a league, half a league, all in the valley of death, rode the 600. Forward Light Brigade, charge for the guns, he said. Into the valley of death rode the 600. Forward the Light Brigade. Was there a man dismayed? Not though the soldier knew. Someone had wondered. There's not to make reply. There's not to reason why. There's but to do or die. Into the valley of death rode the 600. So, cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon to the front of them, volleyed and thundered, stormed at with shot and shell. Boldly they rode and well. Into the valley, into the jaws of death, into the mouth of hell, rode the 600.
Hey, John, are you ready? So John Martin will be next.
Ladies and gentlemen, finish eating this last stuff. Some of you are wondering about extra hot chocolate. But you know, I didn't realize there was much left.
My poems are The Acrobats and It's Dark in Here, written by Shel Silverstein. They are from the book Where the Sidewalk Ends, which was published in 1974. I chose these poems because when I looked at the book, poems looked exciting to read. When I started reading the poems, I was interested in the book. Shel Silverstein was born September 25th, 1930. He died May 10th, 1999 of a heart attack at the age of 68 in Key West, Florida. He wrote many books of poetry and the book The Giving Tree. These poems are lyrical poems. This means they are fun poems that don't tell a story. That don't tell a story with characters, settings, and plot. My first poem is about 3 kids that are being acrobats hanging from a trapeze and they don't want to be dropped. My second poem tells about a kind kid that got too close to the lion's cage and he had to write his poems inside a lion. These poems express the main idea that being an acrobat is fun and going to the zoo is fun. Just don't get dropped and don't get eaten. The theme is Shel Silverstein's lesson that kids should have fun and can have fun reading poetry. The mood for these poems is goofing off and being silly. This poem uses many literary devices and poet elements to express the theme and the main idea. For example, in the last line, Poet writes, don't sneeze. Sneeze rhymes with knees, trapeze, and breeze. Poets use rhyme because when you read words that rhyme, you can know those words that sound the same. Rhyming words can help you write your own poems. He used humor to make fun of dangerous things like getting dropped from a trapeze or getting eaten by a lion. Another example of humor is in the poem It's Dark in Here. In the line in line 3, Silverstein writes, and it's rather dark in here. This is silly because normally you wouldn't write in the dark, and you certainly wouldn't be able to write a poem in a line because you would be chopped up. This helps the reader understand the theme, which is having fun but be careful. In conclusion, these poems are lyrical poems that don't really tell a story, but they make you laugh. I also think that all of Shel Silverstein's books are all about having fun. Acrobats. I will swing by my ankles, you will cling to your knees as you hang from your nose from the high up trapeze. But just one thing, please, as we live with breeze. Don't sneeze. It's dark in here. I'm writing this poem from inside a line, and it's rather dark in here, so please excuse the handwriting, which may not be too clear. But this afternoon, by the lion's cage, I'm afraid I got too near. I'm writing these lines from inside a line, and it's rather dark in here.
Okay, so now it's Bella's turn.
I've memorized the poem Smorgasbord, written by Joe Wayman in 1988. I chose it because it has so many foods, uses wordplay, and because the rhythm is fun to repeat. It is a lyrical poem and has an ABCB rhyme pattern. This poem talks about all the different kinds of food and uses elements of poetry like rhyme and sensory details to express the theme of there being lots of different kinds of food to enjoy. Smorgasbord is all about food. In each stanza, there is a different topic for food. For example, stanza 4 is all about berries. It says gooseberries, chokecherries, pine cherries too, strawberries, raspberries, mulberries, blue. When Joe Wayman has a topic for each stanza, it creates a rhythm that is fun to repeat. It also makes the poem easier to understand and memorize. It creates a special kind of rhyme called the dactylic rhyme, where all 3 syllables rhyme. The poetic elements of this poem are rhyme, sensory details, and wordplay. The poet uses wordplay with the title Smorgasbord. It is meant to be smorgasbord, which is a big feast with literally everything. But in the poem, it is a feast of words. Joe Wayman uses sensory details when he lists the foods in each topic. You can really see, smell, and even want to taste the foods that Joe Wayman speaks about in the poem. For example, in stanza 8, Joe Wayman says, white sauce, brown sauce, cheese sauce, and chicken, custard and butter, scotch, chocolate for Lincoln. In an ABCB rhyme pattern means that the second and fourth line rhyme, and there is not a rhyme to the first and third line. Joe Wayman generally uses this pattern throughout the poem. However, he occasionally adds in more rhyming words. Smorgasbord is a lyrical poem, which means the poem was written for fun or to entertain the reader. Lyrical poetry can also reveal the poet's feelings about the topic of the poem. I think the poet feels grateful for all the food. In conclusion, I picked this poem because it has a fun rhythm, plays with words, and has lots of food. This shows me that the poet Joe Wayman must really enjoy food and wants us to too. Obviously, nonsense lyrical poetry is fun to read and to hear. Smorgasbord by Joe Wayman. Tomatoes, potatoes, pumpkins and peas, rhubarb and parsley, watercress, please. Zucchini and eggplant, cabbage and kale, lettuce and okra, leaves without fail. Crookneck, parsnips and broccoli tops, sirloin and T-bone, pot roast and chops. Gooseberries, choke cherries, pie cherries too, strawberries, raspberries, mulberries, blue. There's sweet corn, cream corn, corn on the cob, string beans, green beans, and purple bean pods. Home fries and french fries, twice baked and mashed, broiled and boiled, patties and hashed. There's scrambled, there's omelets, and sunny side up, soft boiled, hard boiled, and poached in a cup. There's white sauce, brown sauce, cheese sauce, and chicken, custard and butterscotch, chocolate for licking. Hollandaise, wine sauce, and meat marinade, cream sauce and mushroom, and sweet marmalade. Cream us, stew us, fry us, and bake. Eat till you grow, and then please pass the cake.
And our last poet, and beside her is Shay Churches.
My poem is The First Sure Signs of Spring by Carol Jarvis. I chose it because I can relate to my own life and it makes me feel joyful and a little bit relieved. This poem is a joyful poem about a girl who is looking at the beauty of springtime. This poem talks about a girl appreciating and looking at the nature around her and uses elements of poetry like imagery and meter to express a theme of cherishing nature. Have you ever realized the loveliness of nature in the springtime? The poem talks about the springtime and it uses literary devices like meter and imagery to make it more interesting. This poem is mostly about a girl that wakes up in the morning to see all of the beautiful springtime activity around her. Since this is lyrical, it does not have any characters or plot like a narrative poem, but does have a setting. The setting is in a ranch or farm at the start of springtime when a girl is amazed by the charm of the world around her that has unfolded into a land of baby lambs, less firewood, and muddy boots. The theme of the first sure signs of spring is that you should adore and care for nature. The narrator of the poem notices all of the differences that she's seen since fall and winter, like Canadian geese pass right overhead, the first ones I've seen since last fall, line 11 and 12, and the ice is finally gone, line 8. Overall, this is a story about enjoying the first signs of spring. Carol Jarvis also uses literary devices such as imagery and meter to make the poem much more interesting. For example, Jarvis used imagery when she wrote the line, "As the morning sky turned a pastel tint," line 9. I saw this in my mind. I saw the sky turn a pinkish, yellowish orange. She uses sensory details to make the line look like an actual picture. On my ranch, I see all these things: sunset, sunrises, baby animals, and muddy boots. Lots and lots of muddy boots. The poem makes me think of my ranch. Every single line I can connect to. In the poem, there's a rhyme and meter pattern of A, B, C, D. That means that 2 of the 4 lines understand the rhyme. It makes the poem fun to say. It also helps amuse the reader. The genre of the first sure signs of spring is lyrical cowboy poetry. Cowboy poetry is a form of poetry that has been based on the stories that cowboys have told over the years. Usually the theme of cowboy poetry is appreciating the place where cowboys and cowgirls spend their life and call home. Altogether, the poet uses literary devices to get the reader attracted to the text and also uses sensory details to make the reader feel and see what the poem is about. All in all, this poet uses imagery and meter to convey the theme of respecting and treasuring nature. This poem makes me feel cheery and joyful, and I know that it will make you feel this way too. Out where the open prairie spreads wide and the wind makes sagebrush sing, the snow has pulled back to the hills. It's the first sure signs of spring. There's extra hair in the creek comb when I saddled my horse at dawn, and along the creek behind the barn the ice is finally gone. As the morning sky turned a pastel tint, I heard a familiar call. Canadian geese passed right overhead, the first ones I've seen since last fall. The old mama cat just had kittens and the ewes are about to land. Our milk cow Grace had a calf last week, and the kids named him Abraham. As the buds swell on the willow trees and I spot the first springtime flower, I'm aware these are indicators winter's relinquishing power, which is fine. I'm tired of shoveling snow and glad for more daylight hours. It helps cut down on the loads of wood our faithful old stove devours. But even without all the other signs, I know spring has arrived once more by the pile of mud-covered overshoes we put on and take off at the door.
Thank you very much, everyone. I think the 4-5's did a fantastic job. Everybody. I'm so glad you could. Bye. Everybody got to go, right? Yeah? Okay. Everyone went, right? I didn't forget anybody. Okay, bye-bye. Bye. Bye, Ken. See you soon.